The annual Thompson family reunion was in full swing, complete with its traditional sport, criticizing my life choices. This year's venue was my cousin Rachel's newly renovated mansion, where success practically dripped from the chandeliers. "Still doing that freelance thing, Anna?" Rachel's perfectly manicured hand waved dismissively as she perched on her designer sofa. "I thought you'd have given up by now and gotten a real job." I sipped my wine, letting the jab roll off me like all the others. 10 years of listening to them mock my career choices had given me an impressive tolerance for their condescension. "Actually, I'm still consulting," I replied mildly. "Just finished a project last month." "Oh honey," my Aunt Patricia cut in, her voice dripping with fake concern. "You know Robert could always find you something at Thompson Corporation. Even in HR or administration." Robert, my uncle and Thompson Corp CEO, nodded magnanimously from his leather armchair. "Family has to look after family. Though I must say, it's disappointing to see a Thompson without real ambition." Rachel and her brother Michael, both Thompson Corp executives, exchanged knowing smirks. They'd been climbing the corporate ladder since graduation, their paths paved with family connections and inherited privilege. "Speaking of Thompson Corp," Michael added, swirling his expensive scotch, "we're closing the Miller acquisition tomorrow. Biggest deal in company history. But I suppose you wouldn't know anything about that kind of business, Anna." They only knew. My phone buzzed quietly, a message from my actual office. "Final contract revisions complete. Everything ready for tomorrow's signing." I typed back a quick perfect before returning to my role as the family disappointment. It was almost funny how none of them had ever bothered to ask what kind of consulting I did or for whom. They'd simply decided that without a corporate title and a corner office, I must be failing. "How much do consultants make these days?" Rachel's husband James asked with exaggerated curiosity. "Enough to afford rent in the city?" "I manage," I said softly, thinking of my penthouse apartment and the view of the city it offered. The same view I'd be enjoying from the opposite side of the negotiating table tomorrow. "Well, we can't all be successful," Aunt Patricia sighed dramatically. "Someone has to serve as a warning to the younger generation about the importance of following the proper path." The younger generation, she referred to Rachel's teenage daughters, were currently sneaking glasses of champagne while their mother was distracted by criticizing my life choices. I caught their eye and winked, earning surprised looks in return. They'd never seen their family's designated failure show anything but quiet submission. "Did you hear about the Miller Acquisitions consulting firm?" One of Rachel's business school friends asked the room. "Phoenix Consulting Group, they're absolutely ruthless. Nobody even knows who runs it." I bit back a smile. If they only knew. "Probably some old boys club," Michael scoffed. "All the major firms are. Though I hear their CEO is a woman. Probably got the position through quotas or something." Rachel nodded sagely. "That's why Thompson Corp will always win these negotiations. We have real experience, real pedigree." My phone buzzed again. "Miss Thompson, final confirmation needed for tomorrow's strategy." I excused myself to the bathroom, carefully typing my response. "Proceed as planned. And make sure my name is on the final contract in full. Anna Elizabeth Thompson, CEO of Phoenix Consulting Group." Tomorrow would certainly be interesting. "Still hiding in corners, Anna?" Rachel's voice carried through the bathroom door. "Some things never change, do they?" I opened the door, meeting her superior smirk with a calm smile. "No, Rachel. Some things don't change at all. But sometimes they're not what you think they are." She frowned slightly, and used to any response beyond meek acceptance from her unsuccessful cousin. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said softly. "Just thinking about tomorrow. Big day for Thompson Corp, right?" "Not that you'd understand," she sniffed. "But yes, once we sign with Miller Industries, we'll be the largest firm in the sector." I nodded, thinking about the contract waiting in my office, the one with very different terms than Thompson Corp was expecting. "Good luck with that." Rachel stared at me for a moment, perhaps catching something different in my tone, but then her husband called her name and she hurried away, already forgetting our interaction. I checked my watch. In less than 24 hours, the family that had dismissed me for a decade would learn exactly what kind of consulting I did. And exactly who they'd been mocking all these years. Sometimes the best revenge is simply waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. And tomorrow's contract signing would be quite the revelation indeed. The Thompson Corp boardroom buzzed with anticipation the next morning. Executives in tailored suits clustered around the massive oak table, their expressions a mix of triumph and barely contained greed. The Miller acquisition would make them all very rich, or so they thought. I sat quietly in the corner, my lowly consultant status making me practically invisible to my preening relatives. Rachel and Michael held court at one end of the table, regaling their colleagues with predictions of their upcoming promotions. Of course, once the deal closes, I'll be taking over the merged operations, Michael announced confidently. Dad already promised Dash. The boardroom doors swung open, cutting him off. My assistant Claire walked in, her crisp suit and professional demeanor drawing every eye in the room. Representatives from Phoenix Consulting Group have arrived, she announced, shooting me a subtle wink. Uncle Robert stood, straightening his tie. Excellent. Though I must say we expected your CO to attend such an important signing. Oh, she's here, Claire replied smoothly. In fact, she's been here all along. I stood up, enjoying the confused looks as I moved from my corner to the head of the table. Good morning, everyone. Shall we begin? The silence was absolute. Rachel's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Michael's face turned an interesting shade of purple. What is this? Aunt Patricia finally sputtered. This, I said calmly, opening my briefcase, is business. Claire, please distribute the final contracts. Anna. Uncle Robert's voice cracked slightly. You work for Phoenix? Actually, I corrected him gently, I founded Phoenix. Built it from nothing into the most successful consulting firm in the industry. But you all were too busy mocking my career choices to ever ask what I actually did. Rachel grabbed the contract in front of her, frantically flipping pages. This can't be, you're nobody. You're just a failed consultant. Read page 3, Rachel. The CEO's signature line. Anna Elizabeth Thompson, founder and chief executive officer of Phoenix Consulting Group. Michael jumped up, his chair clattering backward. Dad, this is ridiculous. She can't be, she's just Anna. Just Anna, I repeated softly, who spent 10 years building an empire while you all climbed your little corporate ladder. The same Anna who now controls the Miller acquisition. And the same Anna who rewrote your entire contract last night. Uncle Robert snatched a contract, his face paling as he read. These terms, they're completely different from what we discussed. Yes, I agreed. Because you discussed them with Miller's board. But Miller hired Phoenix 6 months ago to handle the actual negotiation. Everything you thought you agreed to was preliminary. This is the real deal. But we'll lose control. Michael's voice rose hysterically. These terms give Miller the majority stake. Actually, I corrected him, these terms give Phoenix the majority stake. Through a very complex series of shell companies that, coincidentally, I control. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Executives frantically flipped through contracts, lawyers huddled in corners whispering urgently, and my relatives stared at me like they'd never seen me before. In a way they hadn't. This is impossible, Aunt Patricia declared. Robert, do something. Uncle Robert slumped in his chair, the fight draining from him as his lawyers confirmed what I'd said. It's all legal. She outmaneuvered us completely. 10 years, I said, my voice carrying over the chaos. 10 years of family reunions where you treated me like a cautionary tale. 10 years of watching you assume that success only comes with a corner office and a family name. Well, guess what? I built something bigger than Thompson Corp could ever be. Rachel, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly found her voice. Why didn't you tell us? I smiled, remembering all the dinner parties where they'd seated me at the children's table, all the condescending advice about getting a real job. Because, dear cousin, sometimes the best strategy is letting your opponents underestimate you completely. The contracts lay on the table like bombs waiting to explode. My signature was already on them, Anna Elizabeth Thompson, written in the same hand that had signed all those Christmas cards they'd probably thrown away. Now, I continued, checking my watch, we have exactly 1 hour before the press conference announcing the merger. I suggest you all take a moment to adjust to your new corporate reality. New reality? Michael choked out. Yes. Starting today, Thompson Corp becomes a subsidiary of Phoenix Group. And all of you, I gestured around the table at my shell-shocked relatives, you'll be reporting to that random consultant, you've been mocking for the past decade." The silence that followed was absolutely priceless. The next hour passed in a blur of legal discussions, hastily made phone calls, and the gradual acceptance of a new corporate reality. I sat at the head of the table, my table now watching my family's carefully constructed world crumble. "The press is waiting in the main conference room," Claire announced, returning from checking the arrangements. "And Anna, Miller's board just called to congratulate you on finally revealing the genius behind Phoenix." Rachel's head snapped up. "Miller knew? They knew who you were this whole time." "Of course they knew," I replied calmly. "Most of our major clients know exactly who I am. The only people who never bothered to find out were sitting in this room." Uncle Robert, who had aged a decade in the past hour, cleared his throat. "Anna, surely we can discuss this as family?" "Family?" I raised an eyebrow. "Like how you discussed my career choices? Or how about when you told the entire country club I was barely making ends meet as a consultant? We were trying to help." Aunt Patricia interjected. "We wanted you to have a real career." "I built a billion-dollar company from nothing," I said quietly. "While you were all fighting over corner offices and executive titles, I was creating something that actually mattered. The only difference is I didn't need to announce it at every family gathering." Michael, who had been furiously texting what I assumed were emergency calls to his lawyer, looked up desperately. "There must be some way to stop this. Some legal challenge." "Your lawyers can certainly try," I agreed. "But considering Phoenix has handled some of the largest corporate acquisitions in the past 5 years, I'd say our legal team is pretty solid. Would you like their numbers? They're the same ones you mockingly suggested I couldn't afford last Christmas." The boardroom doors opened again as my executive team filed in, brilliant professionals I'd hired based on talent rather than family connections. They nodded respectfully as they took their seats, completely ignoring the shell-shocked Thompson Corp executives. "It's time for the press conference," Claire announced. "Anna, would you like to review your speech?" "No need," I smiled. "I've been preparing this one for 10 years. Rachel suddenly stood up, her designer outfit somehow less impressive than it had been yesterday. "Wait, what happens to us?" "That depends," I replied. "Those who can adapt to actually earning their positions are welcome to stay. Those who can't." I shrugged. "I hear consulting is a growing field." The walk to the press conference was surreal. My relatives trailed behind me like ducklings, their usual confidence shattered. As we approached the conference room doors, I could hear the buzz of reporters and cameras on the other side. "One last thing," I turned to face my family. "All those times you asked what I did for a living, I told you, I'm a consultant. I just never mentioned that I consult on how to acquire companies like yours." The doors opened and camera flashes exploded. Reporters called out questions as I took my place at the podium, my family relegated to the background for the first time in their lives. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "I'm Anna Thompson, CEO of Phoenix Consulting Group. Today marks not just a merger of companies, but a reminder that success doesn't always look like what you expect." I caught Rachel's eye in the crowd. She was crying silently, mascara running down her cheeks.